This is Katy Galton, the nutrition educator at the Interfaith Food Pantry. I'm in our Healthy Choices kitchen this morning. Today we're going to make roasted vegetables. This is one of my very most favorite ways to cook vegetables. And while we're making the vegetables, I'm going to talk a little bit about ways to reduce the sodium in your cooking. So let's get started with the vegetables. We're going to be using root vegetables in this. I'm going to be using potatoes, carrots, sweet potato, and onions. I've got everything just about chopped, but I'm going to just finish chopping my sweet potato. One of the key things you want to do when you're making your roasting your vegetables is you want all of the pieces to be about the same size so that they cook evenly. So for my pieces here, they're all about an inch square, maybe about an inch. So that's what I'm going to aim for with the rest of my sweet potato. You'll notice that I've already cut it in half. I've peeled these, washed all the vegetables, peeled them, and then I've cut this to have a flat surface to cut my pieces. So I'm just going to finish cutting. There, cutting it in strips. And then I'm just going to go across and make those inch pieces. And then we've got those all ready to go. I'm going to combine all of these together in my bowl. So the root vegetables are vegetables that grow, the part that we eat is under the ground. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, and these are all hard vegetables, so they're going to take a while to cook in the oven. Just I'll pause for a minute here to say that when we're thinking about cooking and eating in our diet, we want to try to reduce the sodium in our diet. A great portion of our population has high blood pressure, and as you get older, your risk for it just continues to increase. A startling fact that I read was for people over 65, about 78% of the population has high blood pressure. So it's something we all should be watching. We all should be watching the sodium in our diet. Reducing the sodium can lower your risk for developing high blood pressure and also can help you control it a little bit if you do have it. Sometimes people think, oh, food can't taste good if you don't have salt in it. Not true. For these, I'm not going to put salt in it. What I'm going to use instead are some different herbs. I'm going to use some oregano. I'm going to use some thyme. I'm going to use a little bit of black pepper, and I'm going to use some garlic. And those flavors are wonderful and give great flavor to the vegetables. We've got our vegetables here. This is so easy. The next thing I'm going to do is add some olive oil to the vegetables. And then I'm going to add my seasonings. Got my thyme, got my oregano, and this is the great part. You can put whatever seasonings in that you like. Put a little bit of pepper in, and then you can use a spoon, but it's just as easy to use your hands as long as you've washed your hands, which I have. I'm going to just toss that together. You want enough oil to coat the vegetables, but you don't want so much oil that it's puddling at the bottom of it. So we're just going to toss those around. And you can see that they're getting shiny. That means that they've got the oil on them. And then, that looks good. And just spread them right on. If you want to use a spray oil on it, you could do that, but really, because you have those nice and have oil on them, they should be okay and won't stick too much. One thing I haven't added yet is some garlic. Now, you know garlic gives great flavor. For this recipe, when you're roasting it, you just can actually put the whole clove of garlic right in there. And then when it comes out, we're going to squeeze that garlic out. The other thing you could do if you don't like if you do like garlic, but you don't want to use the fresh garlic, you could also just use some garlic powder, and when you added your other seasonings, you could add that to it. One of the wonderful things I love about roasting vegetables is that the roasting brings out the sugars in the vegetables, so it brings almost a sweetness to them, and they'll get nice and caramelized. When you put them on the pan, you want to make sure that you're not mounding them, because then they really won't roast. You want to spread them out. And if they won't all fit on one pan like this, then you really need to get a second pan to do that. So I'm just going to stick this in the oven. I've preheated the oven at 425. These are going to take probably about 45 minutes. And after about 20 minutes, you want to just open the oven and stir them around. How long they take is going to depend on the size that you cut them in. So the size that I cut them in would be about 45 minutes, probably to an hour. If you cut them into very tiny pieces, which I did the last time I made them, they were, very small, about ½ an inch. They were done in 20 minutes. So the size that you cut them is going to make a difference, as well as the type of vegetable. It said these were root vegetables, so they're hard, so they're going to take longer. If you're going to be roasting something like broccoli or zucchini or peppers, they're not going to take as long because they're softer. But the roasting technique is a great technique to do any kind of vegetable. So keep that in mind. Especially nice during the colder winter months when you don't mind using your oven. And then the house smells great, especially when you've got the garlic and onion in there. So remember, roasting is a great way to cook your vegetables. It's a great way to season them with other things than salt. They're going to get a lot of flavor from them, from the different herbs and from the caramelization that occurs. So while you're feeling really good about yourself for cooking those healthy vegetables, think about other ways that you might be able to reduce sodium in your diet. If you're using a lot of canned foods, be a label reader. Read the label to see how much sodium is in them. If you're using canned vegetables or canned beans, rinse them and drain them. Put them into a colander and run them under running water and drain off that liquid. You can reduce almost 40% of the sodium in a can of beans by rinsing and draining it. Use other things to flavor with. Use a dash of vinegar or some lime juice to give flavor. And you'll find that as you start to reduce the salt in your diet, you won't miss it as much as you think you will. Plus you're doing something good for yourself. Now I'm just going to take these out of the oven. The ones I put in are not going to be quite ready, but I did cook some before. Here they are. So you can see that they're going to shrink when you cook them. These filled up the pan just like the other ones that I just put in filled up the pan. You can see the caramelization. They've gotten nice and brown. And they smell delicious. You can see I'm going to pull out my garlic cloves here. I didn't even take the paper off, as you saw. They've gotten very soft. And so what I can do here is just, with my knife, you can see how it's made a bit of like a paste almost. And if you love garlic, This is the way to go. Take that off. And then just going to stir that around to spread that garlic flavor throughout. Take my spatula. Oops, there's one I missed. Get him in there too. And this is a great side dish. And the great thing is, again, use the vegetables you like. Other root vegetables that you could include with this would be beets, turnips, you could even do radishes. If you wanted to add something like broccoli to it, I would start this, cook these for about 20 minutes, and then add the broccoli so it didn't have to cook quite as nice. Carrot go flying. Okay. Here we are. Just going to take a quick taste. It's really good. Reminds me of one more thing. You can cook these as long as you want or as short as you want. If that makes sense. You cook them to your taste. So some people want them to be a little crunchy. Obviously, you're not going to cook them as long. If you want them to be really softer, you're just going to cook them longer. So it's a great thing about cooking. Cook it the way you like it, and you make it healthy. I'll see you next month, November, where we'll be talking about Thanksgiving leftovers.